Aberdeen Football Club are a Scottish professional football club based in Aberdeen. They compete in the Scottish Premiership, having won 4 league titles and 7 Scottish Cups, including a record 3 in a row during the 1980s, the only time a team other than Rangers had done this since 1882. They are also the only Scottish team to have won 2 European trophies, both in the same year, and have never been relegated from the top division of the Scottish Football League system. Formed in 1903 as a result of the amalgamation of 3 clubs from Aberdeen, they rarely challenged for honours until the post-war decade, when they won each of the major Scottish trophies under manager Dave Halliday. This level of success was surpassed in the 1980s, when, under the management of Alex Ferguson, they won 3 league titles, 4 Scottish Cups and a Scottish League Cup, alongside the UEFA Cup Winners Cup and the UEFA Super Cup, both in 1983. Aberdeen were the last club outside of the old firm to win a league title, in 1984 a Euro 85, and also the last Scottish team to win a European trophy. The team has enjoyed less success since this golden era, but a 19-year wait for a major trophy was ended by winning the 2013 Euro 14 Scottish League Cup. Aberdeen have played at Pittodrie Stadium since their inception. The ground currently has a capacity of 21,421 and was the first all-seated and all-covered stadium in the United Kingdom. Pittodrie was also the first football stadium to feature a dugout, an invention of player and coach Donald Coleman. The club's colours have been primarily red and white since 1939. Before this, he played in black and gold vertical stripes. Aberdeen attract support from the city and surrounding areas, as they are the only senior team within a wide area. Aberdeen have no geographically close rivals. Their nearest neighbours at the same level are in the city of Dundee. History, formation and early years. The current Aberdeen F.C. was formed following the merger of 3 city clubs, Aberdeen, Victoria United and Orion, in 1903. The new club played its first match on August 15, 1903, won a Euro 1 draw with Steno Zimu. That first season produced a win in the Aberdeen Cup, but only a third-place finish in the Northern League. The club applied for membership of the Scottish League for the following season, and were elected to the second division, rather than the first. In 1904, the club were managed by Jimmy Phillip. At the end of that first season, despite having finished 7th out of 12 teams, Aberdeen were elected to the new, expanded First Division, and have been in the top tier of Scottish football ever since, a record shared with only Celtic. From 1906, the club made steady progress, with a Scottish Cup semi-final appearance in 1908 and another in 1911. In that season of 1910 Euro 11, Aberdeen recorded their first victories over the old firm, and led the league for a time, but finished the season in second place. Wartime affected the club as much as any other. Despite spending cuts and other economies, by 1917 the situation became untenable. Aberdeen dropped out of competitive football, along with Dundee and Raith Rovers. Senior football returned on August 16, 1919, and Aberdeen resumed with a fixture against Albion Rovers. Phillip was still in charge, and continued to oversee a team capable of isolated good results, but never quite able to sustain a challenge long enough to win a trophy. In 1923, Aberdeen were drawn against Peterhead in the Scottish Cup, and posted their record score a Euro 13 Euro 0 victory. Phillip retired a year later, and was replaced as manager by Paddy Travers. He presided over the team's first Scottish Cup final in 1937. Travers' trainer was former player Donald Coleman. Coleman was regarded as a brilliant and innovative thinker about football, and conceived the dugout, a covered area set slightly below the level of the playing surface to better aid his observations. Everton visited Pittodrie soon after its introduction, and exported the idea to the English leagues, from where it spread throughout the football-playing world. Travers left to become manager of Clyde in 1939. Halliday to McNeil, Travers was replaced by Dave Halliday. Halliday went to his ex-club Queen of the South to sign inside forward George Hamilton. This would be as shrewd a signing as Halliday would ever make. However, Halliday had barely begun his work when the Second World War halted competitive football in the United Kingdom. Halliday's place in the Aberdeen Hall of Fame was secured after the war when he became the first manager to bring national trophies to Pittodrie. Aberdeen, now playing in red, won the Southern League Cup in the 1945 Euro 46 season, defeating Rangers 3 Euro 2 at Hampden. They then reached a 1947 Scottish Cup final, defeating Hibernian 2 Euro 1 with the inspirational Hamilton scoring to gain the club's first major trophy. From this early success, Halliday's side reached 2 more Scottish Cup finals, in 1953 and 1954, although both were lost. Halliday's team were not to be denied, however, and the following season, 1954 Euro 55, Aberdeen won their first Scottish League title. Though league winners, the club did not participate in the first European Cup competition. Euros. Scotland's place was awarded to Hibernian, who took part by special invitation. Halliday and Hamilton left at the end of the championship-winning season, Halliday replaced by Davy Shaw. Aberdeen won the League Cup under his guidance, beating St Mirren in 1955 Euro 56, and reached another Scottish Cup final in 1959. However, Shaw stepped aside for another former favourite player, Tommy Pearson, in 1959. Pearson's time in charge coincided with a high turnover of players, and yielded no trophies. He retired in 1965, making way for Eddie Turnbull. Turnbull led Aberdeen to 2 Scottish Cup finals against Celtic, losing in 1967, but gaining revenge 3 years later. Aberdeen first played in Europe in the 1967 Euro 68 Cup Winners' Cup, qualifying as runners-up to Celtic in the Scottish Cup final. Their first tie was a 14 Euro 1 aggregate victory over KR Reykjavik, although they lost the second-round tie with Standard Liège 3 Euro 2 on aggregate. As Scottish Cup holders in 1970 Euro 71, Aberdeen once again qualified for the same competition, but were eliminated in the first round following a 4 Euro 4 aggregate tie with ONVA Copyright D. This tie, level after extra time and also level on away goals, was decided by the first penalty shootout in UEFA competition history, ONVA Copyright D winning the shootout 5 Euro 4 in Budapest. The Aberdeen side of the 1970s regularly challenged for domestic honours. However, they rarely won trophies, with the exception of the Dribble Cup in 1971 under Jimmy Bonthron and the League Cup in 1976, under Ali MacLeod. During this decade, Aberdeen had 5 managers: Eddie Turnbull, Jimmy Bonthron, Ali MacLeod, Billy McNeill and Alex Ferguson. They reached 2 more National Cup finals: a Euro the Scottish Cup in 1978 under Billy McNeill and the League Cup in the following season under the new manager Alex Ferguson. Alex Ferguson era. Under Ferguson's guidance, the club won 3 league championships, 1 Dribble Cup, 4 Scottish Cups, the European Cup Winners' Cup, the European Super Cup and a League Coupe Euro, all in the space of 7 years. Under Ferguson's guidance, players such as Jim Leighton, Willie Miller, Alex McAleish and Gordon Strachan became the backbone of the team. Aberdeen's second league title was won in 1979, a Euro 80, and this initial success was built on, with Scottish Cup wins in 3 successive seasons from 1982 to 1984, and 2 more league titles in 1983, a Euro 84 and 1984, a Euro 85. In the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1983, Aberdeen beat FC Sin, Dinamo Tirana and Lech Poznan to face the German Cup winners Bayern Munich. This game was won 3 Euro 2 at Pittodrie after a goalless draw in Germany, John Hewitt with the winning goal. They then faced now-defunct Belgian club Waterschoool in the semi-final. Aberdeen beat them 5 Euro 1 at home, and lost for the first time in the tournament, 1 Euro 0 away, resulting in an aggregate victory which sent Aberdeen to the final. On May 11, 1983, Aberdeen beat Real Madrid 2 Euro 1 to win the cup and become only the 3rd Scottish side to win a European trophy. The club released a song, European Song, to coincide with the appearance in the final. This was followed up with the capture of the European Super Cup in December, when Hamburger SV were beaten over 2 legs. Aberdeen reached the semi-finals of the 1983 Euro 84 European Cup Winners' Cup, before losing to Porto 2-0 on aggregate. In the first round of the 1984 Euro 85 European Champion Clubs Cup, Aberdeen lost to East Berlin side BFC Dynamo in a dramatic penalty shootout for Euro 5, following a 3-3 on aggregate in regular times. Today, both clubs enjoy friendly relations. Post-Ferguson, after Ferguson moved south of the border to manage Manchester United in November 1986, Aberdeen struggled to compete with Celtic and a resurgent Rangers. The low point of the club's history came in the 1999 Euro 2000 season, when they finished last in the Premier Division. As the SPL was being expanded to 12 teams, there was then a 3-team playoff. However, as Falkirk's stadium did not meet SPL requirements, Aberdeen retained their status in the top flight. Subsequent to this, and with the club in debt for the first time following the construction of a new stand at one end of the ground, a policy of trying to live within their means has meant that the club has not approached the heights of the 1980s. Aberdeen signed new co-managers in 1989, pairing Alex Smith and Jocky Scott. A number of foreign players were signed, including Dutch internationals Theo Snelders and Hans Gilhorst. In the 1989 Euro 90 the club won both the Scottish Cup and the Scottish League Cup. In the 1990 Euro 91 they lost the last game of the season, and the league title, to Rangers. Willie Miller took over in 1992 and presided over 2 seasons where Aberdeen came close to winning the title. However, he was sacked in 1995 after a bad season, and the club had to rely on a playoff victory over Dunfermline Athletic to retain their Premier League status. Aberdeen replaced him with Roy Aitken. Despite a Scottish League Cup success beating Dundee in 1996, the club continued to struggle. Alex Miller and Paul Hegarty had spells in charge in the late 1990s, but with the financial burden of a new stand putting the club into debt for the first time in its history, the directors turned to Stuart Milne, a local businessman whose firm had built the stand, to bring business acumen to the running of the club. Recent years, Aberdeen's first non-Scottish manager, Eb Scovdale, was appointed in 1999, and his time in charge coincided with some of the heaviest defeats in the club's history. His replacement, Steve Patterson, lasted only 2 seasons. Jimmy Calderwood took over in 2004, and Aberdeen posted more consistent results than in previous seasons. In season 2006 Euro 07, the club finished in 3rd place in the league and thus qualified for the 2007 Euro 08 UEFA Cup. In this competition, Aberdeen defeated Dnipro on the away goals rule in the final qualifying round, the first time Aberdeen had won on away goals in European football for 40 years. They went on to beat FC Carbonhaven for Euro 0, which was the biggest margin of victory and one of Pittodrie's biggest crowds since the 1980s. This set up a meeting with German giants Bayern Munich, which they lost 7-3 on aggregate after a 2-2 draw which saw Aberdeen led twice in the first leg. Calderwood was sacked by Aberdeen on May 24, 2009, hours after he took the club to a 4th-place finish and back into Europe, and was replaced by Mark McKee of Motherwell on June 12, 2009. Aberdeen suffered a 9-0 defeat to Celtic on November 6, 2010, their heaviest ever defeat. A few results later, Mark McKee and his assistants were sacked on December 1, 2010. Craig Brown, who was working without a contract at Motherwell, rebuffed an initial approach by Aberdeen on December 8, 2010. However, he then had a change of heart after a second approach was made on December 9 and resigned as manager at Motherwell to be announced as the next manager at Aberdeen on December 10, 2010. Brown announced his retirement in March 2013 to take up a non-executive role on the club's board, and 2 weeks later Derek McInnes was announced as his successor. In McInnes' first season as manager, Aberdeen won the 2013 Euro 14 Scottish League Cup, their first trophy in 19 years, after defeating Inverness for Euro 2 on penalties. Aberdeen finished 3rd in the league and secured a place in the first qualifying round of the 2014 Euro 15 UEFA Europa League. Colours and crest. For the first season of the club's existence, the team played in a predominantly white strip. This is variously reported as all white, or as white shirts with blue shorts and socks. This colour scheme was the direct descendant of the colours worn by the precursor Aberdeen club, but lasted only one season before being replaced. For the 1904-05 season, Aberdeen adopted a black and gold striped shirt, which led to the team being nicknamed Wasps. This strip, with only minor variations, was worn until just before the start of the Second World War. The blue shorts lasted until 1911, and then were replaced with white ones. Socks were black with gold trim either as stripes or as a solid bar at the turn-down. In March 1939, Aberdeen changed the black and gold colours to red and white, reflecting the silver and red colours of the official City of Aberdeen arms. The first red strips were worn with white shorts, with either red or white socks from 1939 until the 1965-66 season. In 1966, Aberdeen adopted red shorts, making the official kit all red, similar to that of Liverpool, who made a similar change at around the same time. This arrangement has continued to the present day, with several variations in design, in common with most senior clubs as the replica shirt market has expanded. In the late 1970s an Admiral strip featured 5 vertical white stripes on the left side of the shirt and shorts, and the early 1980s shirts was worn at the 1983 European Cup Winners Cup finale featured white vertical pin stripes. Later design changes included significant amounts of blue, and a one-season reversion to white shorts, although the all-red scheme returned in 1997. For the 2012 13 season, Aberdeen once again reverted to wearing white shorts. In 2013 14, the all-red kit was reintroduced. Shirt sponsorship began in 1987, and the initial shirt sponsor was JVC. Since then, with the club making fewer appearances on the international stage, shirt sponsors have tended to be more local. They have included one of the local commercial radio stations, North Sound. With the local economy being dominated by oil companies, the club have tended to be sponsored by oil service companies. For the next 2 years team recruitment will be the club's sponsor. Change, or away, strips have tended to be either white, often with black shorts, or a combination of yellow and black, referring back to the black and gold strips of the pre-war era, although for a time in the 1970s, Aberdeen sported an all-blue change strip with white socks. For the 2007-08 season, the change strip was all white, with a third kit of yellow and black halves available if needed for European games, or in the event of a clash involving both red and white. The club did not have an official crest before 1972, but several variations on the letters AFC had from time to time featured on the shirt, usually in some kind of cursive font. In November 1972, the club unveiled an official crest or logo, designed by Aberdonian graphic designer Donald Addison. The design represented a capital letter E as the side view of a football goal, with a ball forming the crossbar of the letter. This ball was cross-hatched in such a way as to depict it as being inside the net, signifying the scoring of a goal. The logo was completed by the letters FC in smaller type at a level with the ball element. This badge was used on the shirts from around 1978, with no significant alterations until the mid-1980s when the words Aberdeen Football Club were added in a circular border, and the date of the club's founding, 1903, was added under the goal element. The current version of the crest, which retains these elements in a unified design, was introduced at the start of the 1997-08 season. 2 stars signifying the winning of the 2 European trophies in 1983 were introduced over the badge in the 2005-06 season. Kit manufacturers and shirt sponsors, Stadium. Aberdeen have played throughout their existence at Pittodrie Stadium, the name of which comes from the Pictish for place of manure. The ground was first used by the original Aberdeen F.C. in 1899, in a 7-1 win over Dumbarton. When they merged with 2 other teams in 1903, the new club took over the old Aberdeen ground. On August 15, 1903, 8,000 spectators turned up to watch the new Aberdeen draw 1-1 against Steno Zimu, the first game played at Pittodrie by its amalgamated tenants. The club initially rented the ground, but subsequently bought it in 1920. The stadium contains 21,421 seats, but due to the directors' boxes, some sources place this figure at 22,000. The record attendance occurred on March 13, 1954, when 45,061 spectators turned up for a Scottish Cup match between Aberdeen and Hearts. The stadium consists of 4 stands. The main stand, which houses the club offices and players' facilities. The Merkland Road stand is primarily for families. The south stand is opposite the main stand and holds the largest amount of spectators. A quarter of this section is used to accommodate travelling supporters, except for Old Firm games, where half of this stand is given to the visiting fans. The newest element is the Richard Donald stand at the east, or beach end, of the ground, and is named after former chairman Dick Donald. This is a modern, Euro-tier design, completed in 1993, containing hospitality suites which is significantly taller than the other structures at the ground. In 1978, Pittodrie became the first all-covered, all-seater stadium in Britain. The club are examining a move to a new Aberdeen stadium, which if given the go-ahead, will be placed on the Lwaston Loch and will seat around 22,000 but could be increased to 30,000 euro 35,000 should a major event require a stadium of that size in Scotland. Plans for a new stadium began when the club indicated that further development of Pittodrie Stadium was not possible due to the age of the ground and the restrictions from surrounding land. The full council approved the problem in May 2009, subject to planning permission. Publisher in August 2010, a planning application for the new stadium was submitted to the council, which was approved in February 2011. It was announced in August 2011 that Bar Construction Limited will be the contractor for the construction of the stadium, which was scheduled to begin in 2012. However, in May 2012, it was announced that the move had been delayed by a year due to problems with land ownership. Supporters and nicknames: Aberdeen supporters, known as the Red Army, are listed in the team squad list as wearing the number 12 shirt. In 1999, a group of supporters founded the Red Ultras Group with the express aim of improving the atmosphere at Pittodrie. However, it was decided that this particular group was to disband at the beginning of 2010. Aberdeen are the only senior team in the third largest city in Scotland, a city which is relatively remote, geographically, from other large population centres, and as a result have a large catchment area of potential supporters. However, attendances in recent years have not reflected this situation, with the club having the 4th largest average attendance in the SPL in 2008 with 12,928. Important games still see Pittodrie sold out. In the 1980s, a minority of the club's supporters had a reputation as one of Britain's most prominent casuals groups, the Aberdeen Soccer Casuals. The rise of the Aberdeen Casuals coincided with the most successful period in the club's history, and has been chronicled in more than one published account. Aberdeen have rarely played in the same division as their geographically closest rivals, Peterhead, Brechin City, Montrose, Arbroath, Elgin City and Forfar Athletic, so rivalries have tended to come from further afield. Currently, Aberdeen have a minor rivalry with Inverness Cayley Thistle, due to the fact both Aberdeen and Inverness are the 2 largest settlements in the north of Scotland. This is known as the North Derby and has arisen since Inverness were first promoted to the SPL in 2004. In the early 1980s, owing to the success both domestically and in Europe of Aberdeen and Dundee United, the pair were known as the New Firm. However, Dundee United have their city neighbours Dundee as close rivals, and the antagonism was not always reciprocated to the same degree. The same situation applies to Aberdeen's rivalry with Rangers, in that Rangers have their own much older and well-known Old Firm rivalry with Celtic. Aberdeen's rivalry with Rangers arose after a number of incidents in matches between the two clubs in the 1980s, namely Willie Johnston's stamp on John McMaster's neck in the 1979 Euro 80 Scottish League Cup and Neil Simpson's tackle on Ian Durrant in 1988, as well as Aberdeen's dominance in Scottish football throughout the decade. There are still often violent clashes between both sets of supporters within and out with the stadium to this day, with major disturbances outside Ibrox at the most recent game between the two clubs. Aberdeen are known as the Dons, a name that has been in use since at least 1913. This comes from the word don meaning teacher, given Aberdeen's history as a university town. It may also be a reference to the River Don. Before the popular adoption of the Dons, the team were variously known as the Wasps, or the Black and Golds. Both names are reference to the yellow and black striped shirts of the time. As with many teams that play in red, Aberdeen may also be called the Reds from time to time. They are referred to by some supporters as the Dandy Dons, or the Dandies. Most rival clubs call Aberdeen the Sheep, and their supporters the Sheep Shuggers. The term was eventually accepted by the club after Aberdeen fans started singing "The Sheep are on fire" at games, in reference to their good fortune on the pitch. This in turn led to merchandise being sold by the club claiming "The Sheep are on fire," and even resulted in local bakeries selling "The Sheep are on fire" pies. Honours: Domestic, Scottish League, Champions, 1955, 1980, 1984, 1985, Runners-up, 1911, 1937, 1956, 1971, 1972, 1978, 1981, 1982, 1989, 1990, 1991, 1993, 1994. Scottish Cup Winners, 1947, 1970, 1982, 1983, 1984, 1986, 1990, Runners-up, 1937, 1953, 1954, 1959, 1967, 1978, 1993, 2000. Scottish League Cup Winners, 1955, 1976, 1985, 1989, 1995, 2014, Runners-up, 1947, 1979, 1980, 1988, 1989, 1993, 2000. European Cup Winners' Cup Winners, 1983. European Super Cup Winners, 1983. UEFA ranking. As of 11:54, June 2, 2014, players, current squad, as of 17:05, July 21, 2014, note, flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Out on loan, note, flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Notable players. Aberdeen inaugurated a Hall of Fame as part of the club's centenary celebrations in 2003. At the launch, it was suggested that over a 5-year period, around 50 players and staff would be inducted. 6 players were inducted following the initial dinner in March 2004, and a further 6 were included in November 2004. Records. Individual, all players are from Scotland unless otherwise stated. Managers. List of full-time managers, as of March 19, 2014. Only competitive matches are counted. Caretaker managers are not listed. References. Further reading, Webster, Jack. The First 100 Years of the Dons, The Official History of Aberdeen Football Club 1903 Euro 2003. Hodder and Stoughton, London. ISBN A0-340-82344-5. Smith, Paul. The Legends of Aberdeen. Breeden Books. ISBN A978-85983-575-3. Sterling, Kevin. Aberdeen F.C. on this day, History, Facts and Figures from every day of the year. Pitch Publishing Limited. ISBN A978-1-905411-24-5. Ferguson, Alex. Managing My Life. Coronet. ISBN A0-340-72856-6. External links, Aberdeen F.C. Official website, Gothenburg Greats, Inverness Reds Online, Aberdeen FC Supporters Trust, Red Army 12, Aberdeen FC News Hound.